very happy to see you again. We have this interesting called American Dirt. I am so curious about it. It seems to be about a Mexican woman who has to leave Mexico because of the complications in her life related to the Mexican drug cartels and whatnot. Okay, so she has to go. Now, it reminded me of a book that I had presented about a year ago called Lucky Boy, in which there is this Mexican woman, a girl rather, who has to get into America and all the trauma that she suffers in the process. Then, of course, the book goes on into other areas. But I think this book that Sheena is going to present is all about the traumas of the American laws regarding immigration and possibly how cruel they are, maybe. So we are waiting to find out, Sheena. Sheena, I think, is in India today. Are you, Sheena?
Yeah, I just arrived.
Just arrived from Dubai. So welcome, Sheena. Come on. Sheena has a background of HR and journalism. Okay. And clearly she makes hotshot presentations which are difficult for other people to download. Okay, Sheena, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Moini. So let's get on with it because we already wasted time, thanks to me. So about the book. This is a story about a mother and a young son who are in extreme danger of getting killed by a Mexican drugs cartel. So they try to leave Mexico with the cartel hot on their heels, and the only choice for them is the United States. The book follows their perilous journey up north. For these two, going to the United States is not a dream like it is for a lot of people. It is an escape from a nightmare. It's a tale of love and loss, of courage and endurance, of pursuing a dream and not giving up, and about how far you would go to protect someone you love. Jeanine Cummins is an American author. She has written 4 books, a memoir titled A Rip in Heaven, and 3 novels, The Outside Boy, The Crooked Branch, and American Dirt. She clinched a 7-figure deal in 2018 for American Dirt. There was a publishing war. And finally, when it was published in January 2020, Oprah Winfrey picked it up for her book club for that month. There are plans to adapt it into a movie or a TV series. And now Jeanine Cummins is working on her next novel, which she said will be set in Puerto Rico. So before I get into the book, I must say that when it was published, it caused a lot of controversy. And why? Okay. It created a huge fuss. Cummins was accused of exploitation, inaccuracy, and charged with cultural misappropriation because she's a non-Mexican. She was, it raised the question of who has the right to write certain books about certain people, as the author is a non-Mexican writing about Central American and South American people. The author says in her note at the end of the book that she started researching on migration in 2013 and it took her 4 years. She identifies as Latinx because her grandmother came from Puerto Rico. She traveled extensively on both sides of the US-Mexican border to talk to migrants and to research this book. Latin American authors especially have criticized the book of perpetuating stereotypes. Be that as it may, I love this book. I've read it 2 times, even though it is flawed, I felt, and I will probably read it again after some time. Okay, so American Dirt has got about 100 characters. There are 100 names mentioned, or maybe more because I counted them. These include the pivotal characters, secondary characters, and people who just come and go once. Then there are references of poets, playwrights, authors, sports people, politicians, and even characters from fiction, and aliases adopted by some characters. For example, Lydia uses the fake name Fermina Daza from Love in the Time of Cholera. For this presentation, I made a word cloud of the main characters who I will refer to time and time again because they are important and recurrent in the narrative. So in and from Mexico, you have Lydia, you have her 8-year-old son, Luca, her husband, Sebastian, her friend, Javier, and her mother, Abuela. Two sisters from the Honduras, Soledad and Rebecca, meet with Lydia and Luca around 1/3 into the novel. They also have a migrant story which runs parallel to and weaves into the main plot. So I will start with the opening line of the novel. One of the very first bullets comes in through the open window above the toilet where Luca is standing. This is the opening sentence. So just a little background. When I first read American Dirt about a year ago, it was for another book club in Dubai. Going by the first line in the book and thinking it was about gang warfare, street violence, gunfire, and shootouts, I put it down for a week. As the deadline for the presentation discussion grew closer, I picked it up again. I read the first few lines and I was hooked. After that, it was unputdownable. So American Dirt begins with violence. Bullets flying in through a window and ricocheting, a young boy falling down and cutting his lip, the blasting of gunshots outdoors, corpses littering the backyard. We see these scenes through the sensory perceptions of this little boy. The story is generally linear, but peppered with flashbacks telling us what has happened to get to this explosive opening scene. So the book opens on a Saturday, which is April 7, and the occasion is a quinceañera. That is Spanish for the celebration of a girl's 15th birthday, marking her passage from girlhood to womanhood. So we have this happy time happening here in this home. The quinceañera has its cultural roots in Mexico and is widely celebrated by families throughout Latin America. It's a coming of age party for girls, an important milestone in a girl's life. Normally, a lot of people are invited for a quinceañera, but in this one, there are only very close family and relations. So the birthday girl here is Lydia's niece, her sister's daughter, and Luca's cousin, Jennifer. She's probably wearing a handcrafted, specially commissioned, expensive, lacy, frilly white ball gown, which her parents would have saved many years for. She would also be wearing a tiara on her head, signifying that she's a princess, that she has triumphed over her childhood, and is now equipped to face the challenges of adulthood. But in fact, this would be her last day on earth. So the mix of family and friends, young and old, near and far, all combined to make the quinceañera unique and special. There would be lots of food, alcohol, games, dancing, and happiness, fun, and laughter. At this particular quinceañera, there are only 18 closely related people at a backyard barbecue being held in the home of the girl's maternal grandmother. She is referred to as Abuela, the Spanish endearment for grandmother. She is Lydia's mother and Luca's grandmother as well. So Sebastian, Lydia's husband, is the chef for the day and he's doing the cookout. He is barbecuing a whole lot of chicken, drumsticks, and steaks and meat and enjoying the activity.
Sheena, just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Would you like to make it slideshow? Because it's coming quite small right now.
Yeah, how do I do that?
It says that's better. Thank you.
It's okay?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm just scared to close this now.
I know.
Okay.
I was scared to suggest it, but I'm glad it worked.
Okay. So back to the young lad, Luca, whom I referred to earlier. He who has in the middle of luncheon gone to the toilet for taking a wee, because it is not his home, it is Abuela's home. He has excused himself and asked his mother, Lydia, to take him to the toilet. Timing is very important. And this action of his has saved both their lives. Just as he's in the toilet, with his mama guarding the door. A wash of AK-47 bullets follows that is loud, booming and thudding, clacking with helicopter speed. There is a raft of screams too, but that noise is short-lived, soon exterminated by the gunfire. Then the assassins decide to check for survivors inside because they probably have been given a count. One of the gunmen goes to the toilet to relieve himself, exactly where Lydia and Luca are crouched, hiding on the other side of the shower wall. But they are absolutely still and he misses them. He goes out, steps over the bodies, steps between the bodies and announces that the house is clear and he's going to eat some chicken now because there's no excuse for letting good barbecue go to waste, since not when there are children starving in Africa. He actually says that. So for the gunmen, their mission is accomplished, their job is done, it's all in a day's work. And then there is only silence. After what seems like a couple of hours, but is actually maybe no more than 10 minutes, when silence had prevailed for some time, Lydia goes outside alone to check to make sure if the gunmen are gone. She doesn't want her boy to be unsafe, so she leaves him inside. They have gone. She walks around the bodies. Among the 16 people who are killed are all Lydia's immediate and extended family, her husband Sebastian, her sister, her brother-in-law, her niece and nephew, her mother, her aunt, her 2 cousins, and all their children. Sebastian has fallen over the spatula he was holding while he was turning the meat. The gunman had put a cardboard sign weighted to his chest with a simple rock. The sign in green marker said, "My whole family is dead because of me." She knows then that this massacre is the work of a cartel, and she knows who ordered it. After some moments of shock and grief, she decisively reaches for her cell phone, punches 911, and says 2 words only, "Send help." In a few minutes, they hear sirens approaching. So that is to sum up chapter 1 and chapter 2, the stats. So at the end of chapters 1 and 2, we gather the following. The paramedics ascertain that all 16 bodies are lifeless. They cannot be revived. Of the more than 24 law enforcement and medical personnel moving around Abuela's home and patio this very moment, 7 of them receive regular money from the local cartel. The illicit payment is 3 times more than what they earn from their government salaries. In fact, one has already texted the cartel boss to report Lydia's and Luca's survival. According to the author, the unsolved crime rate in Mexico is well north of 90%. So Lydia knows that nothing is going to come out of this. Nobody is going to get caught. Nobody's going to get punished. So she decides then and there that she must get out of here. The setting in Abuela's home is critical as it is the site of the family massacre. It is the last time that Lydia and Luca see their loved ones and a powerful reminder of the violence of which the cartel is capable. When the cop questioning her asks her if she has any suspicions, she thinks, "Are you kidding me? There is only one possible perpetrator for a bloodbath of this magnitude in Acapulco. And surely the police know this. Is this a test, a game, or a trap?" This is the work of her friend Javier, now revealed to us as a drug baron. And we are thinking, hey, hang on, how is a drug lord her friend? What exactly happened? Were they having an affair? So she asked the police permission to get her husband's car keys. Now, first she goes to her mother's room and she packs an overnight bag. She takes her mother's purse, she takes some essential supplies, she puts it in a night bag. With the police's permission, she receives her husband's keys from his pocket and his wedding band from his finger. She goes to the car, circles it twice, opens his backpack, and decides not to take much. She just takes his tablet and the charger, which she powers down to off. She doesn't want to be trackable, to be a blip or a dot on Javier's radar. So Sebastian, her husband, he used to drive a Volkswagen Beetle, a classic vintage 1974, instantly recognizable orange Volkswagen Beetle. They cannot get away in this car for several reasons. Number one, they will be instantly recognizable. Number two, Lydia's driving license has expired. While it is not booby-trapped, it has been marked with a sign that says boob. She knows then they have to disappear to vanish. They have to get away from Acapulco. So far away that Javier Crespo Fuentes, that's his full name, will never be able to find them. So she doesn't go back to her home. She can't. So because she doesn't know who or what might be lying there in wait for her. So Lydia and Luca leave everyone and everything behind. And this scene is so sad because they are not able to mourn. They're not able to grieve. They're not able to bury their loved ones. They have to leave everything behind. Lydia has to leave her home, her bookstore, her husband's car, her passport, and other important documents. They have to run. Okay, a little backstory on Lydia and Sebastian. I've cut the ring because the marriage didn't last. Lydia and Sebastian were college sweethearts. They had met in Mexico City, studied English and maybe history together, and were married for more than 10 years when the story opens. Their only child, Luca, was born 2 years later. 2 years after Luca, Lydia had a late-stage miscarriage when the doctors told her she could never have more children. So that is why protecting Luca is of paramount importance to her, because he's the only one left. So who exactly is this man, Javier Crespo Fuentes? He is the head honcho of the new kid on the block cartel, Les Jardineros, the gardeners. He's also known as the owl, La Lechuza in Spanish, and as El Jefe, which means big boss. Before the cartels destroyed Acapulco, everybody knows it was a tourist haven. Lydia Pérez had owned her bookstore, Words and Pages, I love that name, for almost 10 years. And she'd stocked it with both books she loved and books she wasn't crazy about, but knew would sell. She also kept a healthy inventory of note cards, pens, calendars, keychains, toys, games, magnets, and all that claptrap that tourists buy. And it was that kind of merchandise, along with the latest bestsellers and paperbacks, that made her shop profitable. So it had long been a secret pleasure of Lydia's that, hidden among all the more popular goods, she was able to make a home for some of her best loved titles, books that in some cases had never even been translated into Spanish. They were in English or in other languages, but then she stocked them anyway, not because she expected she'd ever sell them, but simply because it made her happy to know they were there. Tourism had always been the lifeblood of Acapulco, and the violence had scared most of those tourists away. She didn't know how long she'd be able to keep the shop afloat if they didn't return. When Luca was a toddler, she would bring him to the bookshop, and he grew up around books. Luca has now grown up to be a precocious, sensitive, bilingual 8-year-old who is excellent in geography, an aptitude that will help them greatly when they do the cross-country and the border crossing. So around a year before the murders of her family members, Javier arrived alone, unbelievable, at Lydia's shop on a Tuesday morning, just as she was setting her chalkboard on the pavement outside. The sign said something like, buy books, they're cheaper than airline tickets. She was holding the door open with one leg as she lifted the sign through, and then he appeared, approaching quickly and gallantly to help with the door. He looked at the sign, nodded, then sardonically added, but far more dangerous. He then elaborated, books are cheaper than traveling, but they're also more dangerous. They go inside, he selects books, and Lydia then finds that Javier has a similar taste in authors. They start a cheerful banter, which is friendliness from Lydia's side and flirtatious on Javier's side, because he takes to her instantly. She makes him coffee every time he comes. She only knows him as Javier, her customer, as he most probably always paid in cash, as a book reader, a book lover, a book buyer, a book collector. He is in his early 50s and is a man of understated elegance, going by his watch, his glasses, and his pen. He dresses in his Sunday best on weekdays, and he shares her interest in books and authors. He openly flirts with her and she enjoys his attention. He and Lydia have a two-people book club going among them whenever Javier drops by, and he does that every few days. Now, the author has taken literary license here, because I cannot imagine a Pablo Escobar or an Al Chapo dropping into their favorite bookstore to stock up on reading material. Lydia and Javier have many things in common besides sharing favorite authors. Love in the Time of Cholera is one of their special books. They both lost their fathers to cancer when they were very young. They confide things about themselves. Javier has a wife whom he refers to as Queen of My Heart. He also has a mistress whom he refers to as Queen of My Pants. He later refers to Lydia as Queen of My Soul after he confesses that he has fallen in love with her. He tells her that he has a daughter, Marta, who is his sun, moon, and all the stars in the sky. Javier also writes poetry in his spare time, and he has a moleskin notebook, which Lydia thinks atrocious and abysmally bad when he read out a few lines to her. He does not tell Lydia what he does for a living, and she does not ask, which I think was very naive of her. Then he starts to give her exclusive gifts, one-of-a-kind chocolates air-freighted from Paris's principal chocolatier, Jacques Ganan, to appeal to her sensual side, and a set of handmade nesting or matryoshka dolls with silver filigree work. Wonder what he was trying to tell her. Come and strip me to the core and get to know me, or let me discover you layer by layer. Whatever he was trying to discover, we don't know. Now, Sebastian. So it was all very pleasant, very romantic, very dreamlike, that is, until Sebastian Delgado, Lydia's husband and a reputed narco journalist, decided to do his whole hello world, I'm a major kingpin expose on a new cartel and its boss. Javier is actually the chief of a relatively new cartel in the state of Guerrero, of which Acapulco is the capital. And the cartel is known as Los Jardineros, the gardeners, a name that failed initially to evoke the appropriate fear in the populace. That problem had been transitory. Shortly after their formation, everybody in the city knew that the gardeners used guns only when they didn't have time to indulge their creativity. Their preferred tools were more intimate: spades, axes, sickles, hooks, machetes, the simple instruments of hacking and trenching. With these, Los Jardineros moved the earth. With these, they unseated and buried their rivals. The other cartels were either destroyed or they fled and moved their operations to the other states. Lydia was among the entrepreneurs who paid a monthly fee to the cartel just to stay in business, what we call here hafta, something similar to that. So when Sebastian tells his wife Lydia that he was writing this expose on Los Jardineros, she still did not know the identity of Javier, but she became suspicious. She started getting some premonition. The new jefe is smart, Sebastian said. He knows stability is a key and he wants peace. So we'll see, maybe things will get better under the gardeners than they were before. Sebastian thrived on writing about narco violence and he wanted to see Acapulco come back to its glory days. A free press was the last line of defense, he said. The only thing left standing between the people of Mexico and complete annihilation. I know you don't like to think of this like this, but at the end of the day, these guys are businessmen, and this one is smarter than most. According to Sebastian, in another situation, in another life, this drug baron would have been a Bill Gates. That's how intelligent he is, it seems. That night, after her husband was asleep, she crept quietly outside and opened his backpack. Her biggest fear was confirmed. Her dear friend and customer Javier was Javier Crespo Fuentes, the owl whose cartel perpetrated unspeakable horrors. So was Sebastian right in doing what he did, in sacrificing so many people? He probably did not know that this would happen. I thought he was very, very reckless. Sebastian thought he was writing a fair and balanced piece, almost flattering to the new jefe, but of course he overplayed his cards. And he pays with his life for doing this article and that of 15 other innocent people. So back to the present. Lydia leaves her mother's house with an overnight bag, her mother's purse, some loose change, her husband's personal effects. She decides that she will leave Acapulco and travel north to another Mexican city, as far away from Javier's net as possible. Lydia and Luca leave town by bus, backtracking, going forward, taking care to change buses at least 3 times. She stops at a Walmart and picks up essentials for them. She also stops at a bank, careful not to use her ATM card, filling out a withdrawal slip for almost the full amount, their entire life savings, about 12,500 USD in pesos. She asks for the money in large bills. Using her mother's ATM card, she finds that her mother also had over $12,000 in her savings account, but Lydia removes her card. She saves that for late. So this is all the money she will have to make her escape. The mother and son stay overnight at a hotel and then move on early the next day, just missing Javier's henchmen by a hair's breadth. Not only the police, but the bus drivers, the hotel receptionists, the guards at checkpoints, airport check-in staff, almost anybody could be a halcones, a spy, a lookout for the cartel. They cannot be too careful. So Lydia goes to an internet cafe. She searches for her husband's friend and Luca's godfather, Carlos, and enlists his help to escape to Mexico City. So she's going from Acapulco, she's gone to Chilpancingo, where Carlos lives. And she wants to go to Mexico City. All the time she's going up. He and his wife Meredith are Christian missionaries. They managed to get mother and son on a bus returning missionaries from Indiana that is going to the airport. However, when Lydia tries to purchase an air tickets for both of them for a northern city, she is not carrying a photo ID or birth certificate for Luca because she couldn't go back home. And so she couldn't buy the ticket. So she's forced to become a migrant. At this point, she decides that just going to the north of Mexico will not do. Javier will find her. She has to go to the United States. And she has to travel on freight trains which go up to the US border because there aren't any long distance passenger trains connecting in Mexico. Sorry, what did I do? So La Bestia, or the beast, is the freight train upon which migrants ride illegally to reach the US-Mexico border. The only way to do this is by jumping onto the top of the train, usually when it's moving, a dangerous and potentially fatal endeavor. That is why it is also called the train of violence or death train. Hundreds are injured or killed when they fall under its wheels. Many more are raped, robbed, attacked by gangs. You can die by beating or stabbing or shooting. People are kidnapped. Half the people pretending to be migrants or human smuggling agents or train engineers or police or US Customs and Immigration Enforcement agents are working for the cartels. Everybody is on the take. Like all criminal enterprises in Mexico, La Bestia is controlled by the cartels, or rather by a specific cartel. No, it is not Los Jardineros. It is not Javier's cartel. According to Wikipedia, it is estimated that each year between 400,000 and 500,000 migrants, the majority of whom are from El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Mexico, try to make this perilous journey to reach the US. So just after Mexico City, Luca and Lydia meet two young Honduran sisters, Soledad and Rebecca. Soledad and Rebecca teach them the art of boarding La Bestia because they've done it a few times already, coming as they are from the Honduras. Soledad and Rebecca are running from their own monsters, and as both girls are extremely beautiful and thus attract unwanted attention, as well as experience a heightened risk of sexual assault or abduction. Soledad has already been repeatedly raped, a primary reason for her migration. Along the journey, she confesses to Lydia she's pregnant, but she loses the baby. Then, when they are on one particular stretch of the La Bestia, Lydia is wary when Luca spots a young man possessing the cartel tattoo of a sickle and a spade with blood droplets. So each blood drop stands for one murder. This man's name is Lorenzo, and he appears to be stalking them and finally approaches them on La Bestia to show Lydia a selfie of her and Javier. He informs her that this picture has been widely circulated with instructions to bring Lydia in with a big reward. Lorenzo shadows the four travelers throughout their journey, and he makes everyone extremely uncomfortable because he's very creepy. So the group travels on La Bestia by day, but they disembark and stay in shelters at night. At one point, the train is raided by thugs posing as patrolling agents. The corrupt officials round up the migrants who try to run and take the possessions. A group of men separates Soledad and Rebecca, and they are physically and sexually assaulted and then return to the group, broken. Lydia identifies herself as Mexican because she's still in Mexico, and she and Luca are allowed to leave for a price. Luca insists they pay for Soledad and Rebecca's freedom because these thugs want to sell the two girls. So Lydia pays for them. Both Soledad and Lydia are afraid to use their phones. Lydia threw her SIM card in Acapulco itself. This is the reason why they use internet cafes or telephones and computers at migrant shelters. They don't trust technology. They don't want to be found by Javier or by Ivan, Soledad's abuser. Along the way, when they are on the trains, they see people walking in the opposite direction. These are migrants who have been deported from the US, or they have been intercepted at the border. But these people are undeterred. They will try and try again to go back. While there were many, many horror stories, the migrants faced many obstacles and agonies. Along the way, there were many happy stories from total strangers. They receive help, care, and food from volunteers who run migrant shelters, from priests, from doctors, from farmers, from shopkeepers, and even from fellow migrants. Lydia, for example, pays the ransom for Soledad and Rebecca when they were captured by the thugs, and that almost empties her wallet. So she had about $11,000, and most of it is gone. The border crossing will cost her another $11,000 for her and Luca. Later on, she manages to get to a bank, and a kind bank manager who allows her to withdraw the entire amount. But she's still short by $400 to pay the coyote, that is the agent who will help them cross the border into the US. But because she's so kind, I guess somebody else comes to her rescue, and another migrant pays the $400 shortfall for her. So this agent is called the Jackal, and he is hired by Rebecca and Soledad's cousin in the US to help them cross the border. He reluctantly agrees to take the additional $2 for a price, because he doesn't want to take children. He doesn't think that the children can make the journey. So the group is sheltered in an apartment to await their journey to cross the border. They have to now walk and trek. Again, Lorenzo appears. So it's not just these 4 or 5, there are other people who want to cross. So joined by other migrants, the group traverses the Sonoran Desert, which is very treacherous. The trek is arduous and anxiety-provoking as many threats loom: rattlesnakes, dehydration, injury, border patrol, hunger, landslides, and even zealous vigilantes. At one point, Luca develops a blister and he and Lydia are separated from the group, but luckily they manage to make it up. So during the resting period, Lorenzo tries to rape Rebecca because he's so creepy, and he's thwarted by the Jackal. Soledad then takes the coyote's gun and shoots Lorenzo. Lydia then sees Lorenzo's phone. She searches it. She finds text messages from Javier to Lorenzo and vice versa. So it was going to be a trap. She calls Javier, tells him it is over, and his informant is dead. He professes his feelings for her to no avail. After 2.5 days in the desert, they make it. There are RV vehicles waiting for them at the US side, waiting to take them inside. I feel that the ending of the epilogue, the ending of American Dirt is a little limp according to me, because, you know, they get into US and it's all hunky-dory. So of the 14 people guided by the coyote across the Mexican-US border, only 10 make it. It takes them 2.5 days. Sole, Rebecca, Lydia, and Luca make it safely. The epilogue describes their lives in Maryland and with Sole's cousin. Payback time for Soledad and Rebecca. It is challenging for them to acclimatize, but they are safe for now. So they managed to make it aside. So since they could not bury their dead and mourn them, what they do is, this is a Mexican tradition or a Latin American tradition. In the fenced back garden of their little house, they bury some painted stones for their dead loved ones. Lydia and Luca's 16 family members, a migrant who died, and Sole and Rebecca's father, who was a victim of violence. So there are 18 stones. So they pray for their ancestors. They sit in the garden and talk to them, talk to the stones, and commune with them. So that's American Dirt. It would seem that I have given away the entire story, but I think that the book cover gives away the story. It shows you this bird which is escaping. So it obviously shows you that there is freedom ahead. But I would like to say that I did not give out the biggest spoiler. Sebastian was not the first or the last journalist to write about cartels. So why did Javier behave so loco? What was behind his village for an eye revenge? Do read the book to find out. One more slide. Thank you so much for your patience.
Sheena, that was riveting, okay? But I have to say that I was surprised to find that the end is apparently the entry into the United States.
Yes.
And but they're not legal immigrants.
No, they are not legal.
So
They're
it's certainly not hunky-dory just because they've entered. Now, in that book that I mentioned that I had presented, Lucky Boy, you know, the La Bestia and the crossing over, the coyote, all that is part of the trauma. But the rest of it happens after she reaches the United States when she's discovered as an illegal immigrant. And then what happens? And that book has other aspects. But since this book is all about her journey and her aspiration to get away from Mexico and get into the United States, does the novel give you a sense of that's enough? Aren't you left, but what now?
No, I feel that she's left an opening for a sequel. Because Javier is still looking for her. He hasn't given up because she keeps seeing sicarios are hitmen with his tattoo, with the sickle and the spade. They may have escaped from Mexico, but every time she sees, sometimes randomly, she sees, you know, one of these boys with the cartel logo and she gets a start. So that fear is always behind her, you know. Yeah. So the way she ends the book is, it's just been 2 months since they got in the US. So they've just got in. Luca has gone to school. I don't know how. Soledad and Rebecca also have gone to middle school because they don't really speak English. So that is a challenge for them. And Lydia starts working as a cleaning lady to make some money for now. What she does later, there may be a sequel.
It does sound like she's planned a sequel. The way it has been written, it does seem so. Because as Moini says, most of the stories are you come into the US and you have a second round of things which happen to you.
Anxieties.
You read all those books.
Can I stop screen sharing now?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
How do I do that?
Stop share. There's a option, stop share.
Stop share. Okay.
There, yes. Okay, folks, Sheena is willing to answer questions.
Yeah.
Comments,
If I can.
questions.
Sony, you've been quiet. I can see you are there, Sony. Sony Walecha, you're there. Arun, you're also there.
Everyone, please unmute. Please
Hi, Sony.
Please join the conversation.
Ghana we are having a prolonged rainy season.
So are we.
Yeah, like Chennai. Yes.
Oh, Chennai, my God. But yes.
Sheena, tell me what you thought of the book. You said it had its flaws, but in 2 sentences, what was wrong with the book?
The development of the characters of Javier and Lydia. As I said, Javier could not openly be visiting a bookstore every 5 days. First of all, he's running a business and he wouldn't have the time to read and to write poetry. He has this huge business to run, and all he seems to be doing is going to pick up books and come back home and meet his lady love. And Lydia, for being so naive when she's married to the country's leading narco journalist. She didn't know who this guy was. That was very flawed, I felt. Yeah.
But clearly, you found the novel, you said, unputdownable.
Yeah, because the way it's written, grammatically, everything is so perfect. It's very well edited. And I also recommend the audiobook. It's beautiful. Yeah, the audiobook is very good. I heard it twice. I read it twice. Yeah.
If you look at the news that goes on about all the migrants coming in via Mexico, they're having a horrendous time in every way. In fact, the last line coming into Mexico is lousy, and after getting into USA, also they have a very bad time. I even remember a serial which was about the lady who becomes a president. She goes and stops.
House of Cards?
Not House of Cards. Which was it more? The one who becomes the Secretary of State and then become to Vice President and President.
That's Madam Secretary.
Madam Secretary. And she goes down and sees this happening around there and goes inside and frees the kids who have been stuck inside.
Yes. So I also fully expected this novel to have some aspect of the trauma that these illegal immigrants face after entering the United States. Now, what Satish is talking about, the children were separated from their parents. And this was so cruel. And, it was just, the order came, they did it unfeelingly. And then she goes down there, Madam Secretary goes down there and does the humane act, reunites the children and so on. Anyway, so this book, as you said, has left the space open for a sequel, clearly.
I just want to differentiate between what Satish said. Those are migrant camps, and people could be, sitting there for months and months in despicable conditions. But in Lydia's case, because she paid so much of money, this coyote was very good. And he's paid his way. He's paid the cartels. He's paid the US patrols. He's just bribed everybody. And he had these RV vehicles waiting. Because this coyote has done this crossing so many times. So he knows the timings when the cameras are on and when the alarms are off. And so he uses that window period. And then these RVs have bunkers. So they hide them. What they do is the RVs go and park for 2 or 3 days when they know that they're going to get a consignment of migrants. So whoever is coming to check will come and check and see that these are just people who are camping. But actually they're not camping, they're smuggling people inside. So I think she was able to get in without all those camps and things like that. But now to become legal is a big problem for her because her son, as I mentioned, was so good in geography that he was going to join the geography bee in Mexico. And he was also a candidate for the geography bee in the school in the US. But when the teacher found out that he's undocumented, he couldn't make it. So, there are a lot of challenges which are going to happen to them. But that will be another book because this book is itself about 500 pages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's quite thick. I have the book somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, Arun, would you like to weigh in? Okay, we are.
Not really. No question right now.
Okay.
Also, I have a question because because your book club read Love in the Time of Cholera recently.
Yes.
2 years back. I read Love in the Time of Cholera long ago, maybe when it came out or 20 years back or whenever. So Love in the Time of Cholera is always referred to in this book because both Javier and Lydia love it. And but I don't know why he feels that he has something in common with, what's the man's name? The guy who waited for her. The guy who waited for Fermina Daza, that guy who waited for 50 years.
What's the main guy? What's his name, Satish?
Whatever.
Suddenly slipped my mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that guy did not kill Dr. Urbino. Dr. Urbino died because he fell or something happened, right?
Yeah, he was trying to catch his
So I
parrot.
don't understand the comparison between Love in the Time of Cholera and this book and what Javier is going on and on about, Yeah.
Well,
I think you all should read the book. Do you want that big spoiler or no?
No, we don't want a big spoiler, but if you can manage to send the book to me, I would love to read it. That's what I said, that this is a book worth reading. That's what I looked at.
Yeah, Sheena, you have communicated that.
Yeah.
Very much so.
I love it.
Yes. Yeah. So the parallel that I can see is the what shall we say, the fortitude of that love that Fermina and what's his name share, or rather that he feels for her, the depth, the passion, the intensity, all that. that parallel exists. Probably you can't carry it very much further than that, really.
Yes, because when they unite or reunite, they're both very old, right? They were childhood sweethearts, what I remember. And then something happens and she gets married to this doctor.
Yes.
And then she's married to this doctor for a very long time. And then he dies. And then this man comes back into her life. But he's quite an old man now. And I saw the movie with, what's that man's name? Javier. What's the man's name? Penelope Cruz's husband. Yeah. So Penelope Cruz's husband acted so well in this movie, Love and the Time of Cholera.
Yes.
He ages from a 15-year-old to an 80-year-old. I don't know how he does that.
Yeah. He's about 70, yes.
Yeah.
80, they are 80 years old.
80, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so where's Latika? How come Latika you have...
Latika has gone to listen to the Yogita Lima's talk.
Oh, okay.
But Yogita has told me that she's recording it. Mukul, Yogita has told me that she's recording it and will send me the
recording.
Okay.
His name is Javier Bardem, the actor, Penelope Cruz's husband.
Okay.
You know, the guy, we can't remember the name, but he was so good.
Okay. Yes, so other people, please weigh in.
I think you should wind it up now. I don't think people have reduced also, so I think you should wind it up now.
Did you like the slides, Moini?
Very nice.
Very
I think
nice.
very well done. Well done.
Even more impressive than the ones you had for the Murakami, which also, by the way, drew quite a few comments. And people wanted to know how you did it. Can you teach them, etc.?
Why not?
Why not? I heard that.
Sheena,
but I think there was someone else helping you out, because there was another person there behind, or rather in front of you.
That's my husband. He was helping me because I was panicking.
He was helping with the putting it on.
Yeah, because it's his computer. So I was panicking because I really worked on this, and then imagine it comes to naught.
I know.
So,
Sheena, can I ask how contemporary is this book?
Very contemporary.
As in?
I think they refer to Trump. Somebody refers to Trump, president up north. Because I think that Acapulco was a tourist heaven until about a dozen years ago, right? Yeah, it fell around 12 years or no more than that.
Shall I interrupt in the middle? When you talked about Love in the Time of Cholera, that time, the story was taken from this couple who used to come to Acapulco, who were not married to each other, but every year they would come and be there for a week or a fortnight, etc., and go away in different locations. But this, that's why Acapulco was a part of the story there.
Yeah.
Okay, is that guy's name Florentino Ariza?
Yes.
Yeah.
Florentino Ariza.
And Fermina Daza.
Yeah. One bit of news. I just had to suggest Cloud Cuckoo and Anthony Dewar. And guess what? Amitabh Jindal has already ordered the book.
Very good. In fact, when he was presenting it, I did mention that the new book, Cloud Cuckoo Land, was out, and maybe we might like to look at it. I mean, he didn't react then, but I'm so glad. This Anthony Dewar is quite a writer, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm totally looking forward to this new book. Okay, so no further comments on this book. Okay, then we'll wind up. And in fact, Latika did say to me the other day that we go on way too long and we really should try to keep it within the hour. So I think Latika should be aware now that today we have done it, folks. In spite of starting late, ourselves were conscious that this was becoming a bit of a big bag loser, a big baggy monster like a Victorian novel. It was going on too long. And yes, we've been wanting to keep it shorter. Okay, here goes. First successful attempt, which has happened, not because of us, but in spite of us. But nevertheless, it has happened. Now, Sheena, I'd like to thank you. Excellent exposition. And I mean, your slideshow is absolutely phenomenal. I wasn't even going to say it because it is so beyond my league. I said, even if I ask her to teach me, I'm going to be able to learn.
No, I can. It's not very difficult. And what happened was that when I was in Dubai, my son had the latest PowerPoint version. He had Office 365 PowerPoint, which was such a dream. We don't have that here. Yeah. So the slides that I saved there, you know what happens in Office PowerPoint 365 is that when you throw your pictures into a slide, that's what I did. And it takes those pictures and it gives you 20 options of the slide. It'll give you design ideas.
How to arrange. I see.
And you can choose that and then you can work on that. So I did that for some of them.
Okay. Yeah. Live and learn. Okay.
And then you always have a problem. If you have it, do it the same. Use the older one. You cannot use it on the new machine. You have problems. I remember when early days, I had to have problems and I had to get another download of.
No, I could use it. In fact, because I'd worked on it partly here and then I worked on there.
Okay.
So those slides got saved, but I then could not make better slides because I don't have that. I want to buy that now, because I'm now can't use anything else. But having said that, I also have a huge library of newspaper and magazine cuttings. I think you all must have recognized some of those pictures from our times of India.
Yes, very nice. I think it was very good.
Yeah.
So I just have one point, Sheena.
Yes.
If I may interrupt. Just a last point, kind of. I think you underplayed it very well. It must have been so much more poignant and so much more, so tragic. I mean, we've been reading about these migrants coming in the news, and this is a book about that. So I just thought how terrible it must be for families to be either mowed down or separated, and the girls being raped. So you kind of underplayed it and made it seem as if it's a sort of
there were many horror stories. But I couldn't, talk about.
No. I understand. Yeah.
For example, let's say two brothers are riding on La Bestia on the top, and one of them falls. And then the other one also goes behind him and he also dies. There were a lot of these kind of things happening.
Yeah. And also lots of examples, I mean, just human cruelty, from what you tell us, how.
Human cruelty, but there were many good stories.
Instances of kindness, yes. I was just good,
Like the doctor who helps them when, after the girls were raped because there was blood trickling down and they were walking, they were penniless, and he stopped his car. Now they didn't trust anyone. Obviously, after what has happened, they don't trust anybody. But this doctor said, look, I'm a doctor. This is my card. He shows them his tag. He shows them his license plate. Then he shows them his Facebook profile, his name, his family, and he takes them somewhere. He buys them food. He puts them up in a hotel. He gives them medical treatment, and he goes the next day, and then he comes back, and then he drives them to a certain point, and he doesn't say goodbye because he doesn't want to be thanked. So, there are some nice people.
Yeah, surely.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to read it again after Satish reads it.
Okay, right. So, Sheena, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Sheena.
Thank you. Gorgeous presentation. Thank you, everyone who's here, who has participated, has listened. Thank you very much. So as I said, next Sunday, we have Varsha Khate talking about Alice Munro. And she has chosen these two stories, Runaway and Open Secrets. And I've posted them. So everyone do please read them and be ready with them. Just in case she's not well enough to present, then I will be presenting The Cherry Orchard. All right. So that's the 28th of November. 5th of December, we have Kafka's The Trial with Prabhanjan Mane. If you remember when the Kolhapur floods happened, he had to opt out of his date. And so now he'll be coming with the text that he had planned then. 12th of December will be Sanjay Phadke with Weapons of Math Destruction by Kathy O'Neill. Fascinating sounding, isn't it? Okay, so that's it. That's where we are. And thank you and see you next Sunday.
Can I just say something before we
Yes, Sheena, please.
Why don't you guys have an end of the year recap of your favorite book? So what we do in Dubai is that we take a vote of, like we choose like 6 people will decide on which books they are going to read. So we take the vote of the most popular books, and we have 6 people discussing 4 each or 3 each very quickly.
Oh, a recap.
Yeah, a recap.
That's a good idea. What we can do in April, we are going to have the Shakespeare
celebration.
That we look at April as the start and finish of our series as such.
Okay.
So Shakespeare series is there. So around that time, maybe we could think of doing it. Let's see how it works out. It's a good idea.
And how are you feeling now?
Top of the world, ma'am.
Great. Okay.
Says he, not so actually, but
I guess New York would have been very cold for you, no?
It would have been, but
right? Yeah.
Of course, you're right, Sheena. It's just that it had been 2 years and we wanted to see them,
But so with the grandkids, no way, it's just fine.
Anyway, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Bye,
All
everyone. Bye-bye. See you next Sunday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.